of perception. But when it contracts, then something from the spiritual world can come through and impact the chitta. But it's moving. So you either have the moving of the object in the external world, or in what we generate in our mind, or you have the movement of the chitta itself, the chitta, but the prana itself, in perceiving the spiritual world. And so when we work with pranayama and work with chakra dhyana, we have just different ways that have the same problem. There's not true stillness. You're still getting snapshots. And then you run those in a rhythmic way, and you get apparent movement. You get apparent continuity. Now, the goal in dharana is to get something which is truly whole and still. Is to take something up that is truly whole and still. This article will explain that in more detail. You read it. And so when you use, so basically, the way that happens is that you have these two processes that you're trying to work with. And you realize, as Fred did, that these processes, each of them is limited in their own way, and I keep bouncing back and forth between them. I'm kind of in this polarity. And then I'm working with pranayama, and it's all rhythmic over here, and that has this thing, but then I got to go work with chakra dhyana if I want to experience it here, and you sort of get this. But doing the two and holding them over a period of time, by grace, there's a process that takes place where you begin to lift yourself out of both processes. You begin to witness the processes, and you begin to distinguish between them and know yourself separate from the processes. You know yourself separate from the processes. Before that, you don't know yourself separate from the process. You're just simply in one or the other. You're perceiving mostly through something like chakra dhyana. It's like, the chakra dhyana happens in our lives all the time. Anytime we forget, sometimes you're driving, and then suddenly you're at your destination, and you don't remember driving. That was chakra dhyana. That was chakra dhyana. Basically, chakra dhyana came through and steeled the mind, and through something that was outside and focusing on it, just like concentrating on it. And the other way is, through a process of meditation or becoming aware inwardly. So there's one way of experiencing that outwardly and experiencing it inwardly. But you get absorbed in them, you lose yourself in them. So in that case of the car is a good example, because there's no witnessship. You simply wake up and say, oh, whoa, I didn't even remember driving for the last hour. So you lose yourself in them. And so both of them have that capacity for you to lose yourself in them in the practice of them. And so that's why both of them must be done. We do chakra dhyana, then we do pranayama, and we have a practice of really recognizing this distinction between those two practices. And by doing that, we eventually begin to lift ourselves out of both of the processes and begin to establish witnessship. And establishing that witnessship, we are in a low state of dhyana.
But you still observe the rhythmic experience.
But you are now the still aspect.
But you'll see that it's rhythmic.
Right. You are now the thing which runs through it. Your eye, lifted out of it, is still. And you observe all the stuff down here, but now you are the still aspect, of it. And so, and what happens in a way now is that you become the object of those yourself. Your own still I becomes the object of both of those processes once you lift it out. Rather than being absorbed in it, you become the object of it. And that's at the chitta level. So what the chitta now, this is the consciousness soul experience. The chitta now becomes, rather than focused on the objects in the world or all kinds of internal stuff, the chitta takes you as the object. Your witnessing stance. And that is the consciousness soul experience. When your mind has you as its object, and is filled with your destiny and understanding of you, it perceives you. That self-perception puts you in a state of consciousness soul.
I lost you there because the way you phrase it, chitta takes you, I don't know, I began seeing it as something that has volition.
Well, look at the chitta as like no, more like clay. And all these things get imprinted in it. And you identify with everything that gets imprinted in it. And now you lift yourself out of it. You don't identify with the things that get imprinted in it, but now you're witnessing the things that get imprinted in it. And then suddenly those things stop, and all you see in the cheetah is your I, your existence, your destiny, your being. The cheetah, by virtue of now, and that only happens really because you get unenamored with the show that's going on when you first start witnessing it. At first you were kind of enamored with it, and so the cheetah just forms a show for you. But then as you do the Ista mantra and you get more in touch with your destiny. Concretely, I must say that recently I've had some kind of spiritual work, for myself, some breakthroughs. And I have begun to be more and more in touch with my Ista in the world. Now I'm developing a clear picture of the nature of that deity and our relationship with it. And that's what it's like. So in the cheetah, which everything we experience is cheetah. When we experience ourselves looking at the world, we're experiencing ourselves looking at the impressions of the world on the cheetah. And so in the cheetah now, I begin to see my Ista everywhere. So now the cheetah, only expresses to me in the moment how my destiny is unfolding here. So that's how it manifests practically. Rather than get distracted with, this is about Obama getting elected, this is about me doing my karmic work. And so in every situation, whether being distracted eccentrically by the meaning of these things in the world, I know all their meanings in terms of who I am. And that's what practically it looks like for the cheetah to be always taking the impression of your identity and your being in that. You see how the world is meeting your karma in these situations, rather than really being focused on what this means in the world in an eccentric way. And so that process happens where now the cheetah is taking on your being as the as its stuff, and then you're you're conscious of your own I-ness, your own ego-ness, and you're conscious of it in all of your aspects of your life. You just become conscious of your consciousness of reality. And then it's possible for the next stage to happen. Because what happens here is that your being is an articulation out of that deity that is your Ista. And now when you begin to be taken on in that film that is a cheetah, then there's not many pictures. There's only the one picture of you, but guess what? It's a living, moving picture. So now in the cheetah, it's like, to think of it, the difference between the cheetah being a cookie cutter, where I take a cookie cutter and I press it in the clay, to sculpting the clay, and the clay changing. So now the clay is a living, changing thing, because it's me. So it's not me looking at this clay and having all these things stuck in it. Now, on the one, I can put it as a film where, rather than needing many different frames, in one frame, the whole living picture is there. I can watch the whole movie in one frame as a thing which is whole and moving in it. That is, I'm in touch with the articulation of my being in the moment. How I'm being articulated into the world out of cosmos. And now you're at a different level of witnesship. The first level of witnesship is more just kind of seeing impressions of yourself in the world. And then you begin to see your unfolding. You begin to witness your unfolding, your articulation of your being. Not just the done I of your being, but the unfolding of your being as it's kind of coming out of the cosmos. Which, is what's a comparable experience of that, because then you are inside divine energy. You are living the divine energy, a part of that articulation, not just the finished product of it looking back at it, but you're living in the articulation. And then, of course, the next stage of it is to merge in the Mahat, your identity in God, the Mahatattva. Out of God, your identity articulates, it flows into the world, and then there's a done into it, where it's actually in the world. So you eventually merge into your identity in God. And that is Samadhi. You know, you don't see your identity as separate, but it's an identity within God. Not an identity which is associated with the Dhyana, the thing that is articulated and retained in the world. And those are the three levels of Dhyana, and witnessship. That first just emerge, and to reiterate, they first just emerge out of working with the polarities. You just work with those polarities. You do the practice. First thing is to become aware of those activities in your being, and that's what pranayama and Dhyana are about, is to become aware of that going on in your being and be able to work with that. And then become the witness of that, and then move up those three levels of experience. Now, for most of us, if we have the experience of Samadhi, we have no memory of what that reality was like. We only know we blissed out. So you can have an experience of Samadhi, but for an enlightened person, they can walk around in heaven and they come back on earth and they can tell you everything that they saw. They don't just feel like, I was happy there. It was a happy time in my existence, as most of us can say. We remember that. But an enlightened person, of course, knows the details of what was going on between, is God's buddy. Yeah, we did this, we were hanging out with